Okay, so I am here. My name's Dyan Wiley. I am a board member of SAGE Senior Co-Housing Advocates, and we are spending time having web chats with a variety of co-housing professionals and co-housing community members in senior communities. And today I have the pleasure of chatting with a colleague, Shelly Parks, who is on the other coast. I'm on the East Coast, she's on the West Coast. And Shelly is an incredible marketing professional who I've met and been in some of her marketing workshops for co-housing communities. And she also happens to be a member of a new community, Skagit Co-Housing. And we'll get to hear a little bit about that from Shelly. So Shelly, do you want to share a little bit more than that introduction about your background?
Sure. Thanks, Dyan. Yeah, you know, my professional background was in leading sales and marketing teams in very large startup retirement communities, continuing care retirement communities, and did that for a long time. And at one point decided that, you know, personally, I would never want to live in a retirement community. It was a little bit of a career crisis for me, and started doing research about what other options were out there for how we could age well, and came upon co-housing, and it really answered the question for me of how can we really age really well and come together. So left that really great career job and went through Katie McCamit's 500 Communities program. And it's been really amazing because so much of the startup retirement world is so similar to co-housing, because it's needing to find your buyers ahead of time. You know, you're actually trying to cast a vision of what you could be, but then getting people committed so that you can get your financing. So it's just like co-housing. So I take all those skills and just, you know, bring it to try to support the co-housing movement. And then, yep, my husband Charles and I are members of Skagit Co-Housing, which looks like we will start construction here this fall. And it's a pretty exciting time for us with this project. And we've been in since the early days. So have gone through the whole, you know, recruiting the members phase and trying to find the people that would want to join this community.
Great. Well, one of the things I wanted to delve into is because co-housing requires community members who get to design and build their communities to also, they have to become expert at building a multi-million-dollar, multi-unit housing development. And we all don't come with all the skills that are required of that. So we need to work with a team of professionals who each have a different role. So could you, since you're one of those professionals that need to be in the budget as much as a contractor, a carpenter, architect, marketing is key because, as you just mentioned, you need to draw the members in to help make the project happen. So can you talk quickly about what the professional team can be comprised of?
Yeah, and of course, you know, I'm in my head, I'm thinking of this, the team that you need before you actually are really knee deep into the development side, right? In terms of, you know, working with the architects and things. But I know groups that have partnered with a development consultant. So, you know, someone like Katie McCamit that can really help guide a group, I think are really important because, like you said, most of us have never built a multi-million multifamily development. So it's very easy to take missteps that can be costly down the road, because time is money when you're trying to get a co-housing community built. So you want to move, you know, as quickly forward as you possibly can without taking side roads that will get you distracted. So I think, you know, really strong development consultants who have a background in really what is co-housing all about can be invaluable. And I know groups struggle because it feels expensive as that cost up front, but I've certainly seen where groups that money, you will end up saving that money many times over by not making expensive mistakes. And I think, you know, having a marketing professional come on side along is come alongside you as you're doing it is really helpful, because again, most groups often don't, well, I will say this. I think many groups often do the marketing piece pretty well because we're really passionate about our projects. You know, we are good about talking about what we're doing, and we can get people excited. But the challenge is what happens when we have people interested? How do we really get them engaged and move them along a membership process and actually get committed? So taking all those pieces of, you know, how do I create a marketing plan? What does a strategic marketing plan look like? Do I have someone that I can talk through when I run into an issue? Do I have someone I can talk through the problem with? So I think a marketing professional can really help, you know, making sure that you're really getting the members you need to have your project be successful, because without members, we are not a co-housing community. And I should say committed members that are, you know, putting money into the project. And a couple other, I think, professionals that are helpful is many groups will partner with an outside, not sure what you would call it, but almost like a marketing assistant, because sometimes groups will have the ability internally to make sure that their website stays, you know, beautifully updated and all their marketing materials are beautiful. But sometimes it can be challenging within a group if a member is responsible for all that. For instance, one group, it was a community member that made the logo. So the community member was very invested in that logo. And then when there was some feelings within the community that the logo needed to be changed, you know, there was personal investment within the community. So it was difficult for the group to navigate that. And had they had an outside person that had created the logo, you know, it wouldn't have the professional things. And then I think also, of course, having a process consultant trainer that will really make sure that you, you know, early on in your group, you hold very, you know, your governance is set up so you know how you're governing yourself, and so that, you know, your meetings are very efficient and well run, because people are watching you. They will come to a meeting and they will look and they will say, is this group getting things done? Are they respectful? Do they listen to each other? And, you know, oftentimes, I know for me, I came from a corporate background, and moving into co-housing was very different. And I had to learn a whole new set of skills and be mindful of how to do that. So I'm really thankful for the trainers that we've had along the way to help us with that.
That's great, because I think about, I don't know if this is a fair way to organize soft skills and hard skills. So, you know, engineering, the water and sewer, the architects, the buildings. Marketing is it's a people process. It's a messaging process. Same with governance and meetings, it's communications. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very, very important for groups to really build their skills, because they're going to carry it over throughout the life of their time in community, is learning new skills. And marketing, I know if you walked us through the whole timeline, the marketing you do in the beginning continues on. You know, you move in and a house gets sold and you need to market to new members. So the next question I want to ask you is about common pitfalls. And you've already mentioned a couple of them. Mm-hmm. One being that people try to do marketing DIY, okay? Yes. You can do some of it. You know, somebody's very facile with developing a website, great. Somebody can put together a flyer, great. But really, to make it hit home, even if you have someone review your materials, or if you don't have the skills in there, I can't say enough about how, like you said, you need to put that money in your budget, because it will save you so much down the road. It will shorten your timeline. As you said, time is money. You try to cheap it out in the beginning. To me, that's a common pitfall.
Yeah.
So can you suggest any other sort of common pitfalls that people...
Yeah. I know you shared this question with me ahead of time, and I really liked it because there's some real classic things that I see. So let me expand a little bit on what I said about, so what community members can do is be out there being face-to-face and talking with potential people that might be interested in your project. So what happens sometimes is groups really love that marketing piece. They love thinking about the website and setting it up and all that. And they spend too much time doing that. And that's something professionals can do. And they don't spend the time actually connecting with people and talking with them. And if I go back to my, my professional sales world in the senior living industry, we would expect all of the salespeople that were, getting people committed to have at least 7 very meaningful connections with someone before they made a decision. So, it's constantly being out there and talking with people on the phone, or, meeting for coffee when we could do that, or going for a walk. So I think groups sometimes forget about that piece of needing to be consistent in reaching out to people. But some other things is, I think not having a clear path to membership. When I work with groups very early on, we make sure that it's a very clear path from someone, maybe filling out a contact form on the website, from what happens at that moment, all the way through to the moment that they become a committed, invested member into the project. And so making sure that that path is clear, and easily explainable, and it's not too complicated or hard. Co-housers sometimes can make things really complicated. so trying to make sure that it's a simple, clear path. And then I would say a couple other things is not having a really clear way of keeping track of all the interested people. I'll tell a quick story. One of my very first clients, I asked them, I said, so tell me how many people you have in your database. And they kind of said, database? They said, well, we have a list of people. I said, okay, great. How many people do you have on your list? And I'm sitting in a room with these people. And one person said, well, I think it's about 500 and something. I said, okay, great. And then another person said, well, on my list, it's only 270. And then someone else said something else. And I remember saying, you have 3 lists. And they looked at each other and they said, we do. We didn't know we had 3 lists. So, early on when I started working with co-housers, I realized that was something that we needed to figure out a way to have what's called a CRM, a customer relationship management system. So having some way to track everybody and keep track of when you talk with someone, you have a way to put the notes in, you have a way to, schedule a task or something, because when you have a lot of different lists, there's no way you can keep track of people. And you also can't remember conversations, you want to be able to remember those things. So that would be one thing. And then you mentioned this in the beginning would be to make sure that you think of yourself as a professional developer. When we are starting a co-housing community, essentially we are a group of people that are acting as developers. And so, I'm not crazy about this term, but it seems to work. It's like fake it till you make it. So you really have to put on your professional face and come across as that you've got your act together, you're reputable, because you are going to be asking people to be investing a lot of money, and they need that security that as an organization, what you're doing. And lastly, I would say, be comfortable talking about the costs of co-housing. I know many of us are trying to figure out how do we make co-housing more affordable, but the bottom line is oftentimes it's market rate housing, and it's expensive. And I think what I find in working with groups is sometimes they don't address that cost issue right up front as they're talking with people. And, we have to be able to talk about that in a way we're comfortable with, so that if we're not the right fit for someone, we're not wasting their time, and vice versa. So those are kind of my top things.
That's great. That's a good list. You're reminding me of, I was one of the people, because I'm comfortable talking to people and doing presentations, that back 25 years ago when we were selling our community, one of the things we did that was really successful, and I think a marketing consultant, a marketing coach can help with this, is that we met in pairs. We would do orientations at the library in the good old days, and we would meet with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people. And it really helped to do too, because when I would run out of something to say, my partner would, and we had an outline of the points we wanted to take. But the other thing that was great about it is it helped grow people's skills. So someone who was pretty good at it would partner with someone who was less. Because with the groups I've worked with, they have a really hard time selling, promoting the project. They feel intimidated. So have you done coaching where you help people with that sort of training, do your elevator speech kind of thing? Do you do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I do. So back in the days before the virus, I would often get together with groups with all of their members and really try to do, I thought of it as sales training. And in my head, it was as if I would say, okay, I'm going to take a group of people that maybe have had zero experience being in a sales role. And of course, people would get really uncomfortable. I don't want to be a salesperson. So we would talk about that it's not about sales, it's about relationship building, right? And we are talking to people that are our potential future neighbors. So we don't want to, sell them something that they're not going to be happy with and we're not going to be happy with. But how do we come alongside them and really make sure this is a good fit for them? And what does that look like? So, and a lot of that is also being on the phone, right? Like, what do you say when you're on the phone with somebody? What does that kind of conversation look like? So yeah, those workshops I love because I feel like it's a 3-hour workshop where, you take the best practices of what a professional sales team would look like and really give some skill sets. Things like what does an elevator pitch look like? What's a good one? But one of the things I've been doing recently that I love is I've been having weekly calls with my clients, and then it's very much looking at what needs to happen right now in their project, and then walking them through. We actually do what's called hot lead meetings, where we pull the people that are most interested, and we talk through like what would be a good next step with this person. What should they say? How should they handle that? And then those are really fun because that's a big skill set in helping move people through a process.
That sounds great because it goes a little deeper than, starting out. It's helpful to have questions to ask. So sort of having a Q&A guide to start to go through that and warm up. Like, best practices are asking them, what are they interested in? And, they're the kind of things like, is this a fit? A lot of the great websites out there for communities, they will put, are we a fit? And they'll have a set of questions of what you might expect. And so I imagine you do that in kind of the marketing scheme of helping members sell their project, but also vet potential members.
Yeah, you said that well. Yeah, and I'll tell you, as we're talking, I'm reminded of something I witnessed one time, and I think this is a great example of what co-housers sometimes do. We're excited, so we just want to dump all the detail. Like, I want to tell you everything about my project. And I was visiting a community, and they happened to be having a site tour, plus there was a fair going on in the, kind of a community fair going on. And I was watching one of the members talk to an interested person right across the street at this site tour. And I could see the body language of the community member. They were super excited. They were talking and they were animated. And I could see the body language of the woman listening, and her arms were folded. And you could tell she was trying to figure out a way to escape, right? So a little bit later, I ended up running into her. And I said, oh, I saw you were at the site tour. We were talking. Well, in probably 5 minutes, I learned that she'd actually been a retired journalist on senior living issues. She had this amazing background and, heard more about what her interest was in this community. And then later, when we were all together and sort of, sharing what we had heard from people, it was interesting that the person that had been, sharing all the information knew nothing about her, zero, nothing. And it was a good lesson to me. And yeah, if we're going to have people want to be interested in our project, we have got to stop talking and ask great questions and listen. And like you said, vet, that really allows us to also vet and maybe not spend more time than we should be spending, because maybe we're not the right fit. Maybe we're not what they're looking for. And we're only going to know that if we ask the questions.
That is great advice. I think that is golden advice to, put a little information out, but really draw someone in, because people like to be seen, they like to be heard. And so I think that's really great.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned some of the tools. I think this will be my last question is, you mentioned, a website. So for groups starting out, what are the first 5 or 6 things they need to invest their time and money, and hopefully a coach to help them?
Yeah, I think it's really valuable for groups to spend, invest in the time of really visiting websites and making note. It's educating yourself. What are the good websites? What are the bad websites? I will add, I would add another pitfall is I see sometimes groups, they get their first website set up. It's wonderful, but then they want to keep adding stuff because they think that's important. And I think it's really easy for websites to get messy with stuff not thoughtfully added. So I think it's helpful to look at a number of websites to really evaluate, when I talk to my clients a lot about put yourself in the shoes of a potential person, really get yourself in that space and envision if they're looking at, a website for the first time, how does it feel? What information are they getting? All those things. I think sit in on informational meetings. It's easy now because we're all doing them by Zoom. But I think that's really helpful to see what are groups doing that seems like it's working well. What are groups doing? Because sometimes we learn just as much, right, when we see how we don't want to do things. So being able to do that. I know for me, early on in my journey, it was really helpful for me to, purchase all the different co-housing books there are out there and read and highlight the language that I really thought was, that would speak to someone. And of course, take advantage of, all that you're offering. I think that's so great. Of course, also the Co-Housing Association of the US, there's some resources there. And yeah, I think that's, early on, that's what I would suggest. And then, start reaching out. I think most of the marketing professionals will offer, like a free hour consultation. I know I do. It's a great way for people to just call and, sometimes I might not be the right fit for what they need. So it's nice to be able to talk through that.
So if someone is thinking about getting marketing assistance, I assume that you'll walk them through like a scope of services. I could do this, this, and this. I could offer a certain amount of hours. So that's something that they could call and ask you, like, what might be your scope of services for where we're at? Trying to budget maybe in a couple of early phases. So that's something that occurred to me. And I'm going to end by something that you said early on of staying in touch with people who are interested. Our community is across the street. There's an 8-acre parcel across the street from us that we've been trying to buy for the past 5 years. And we've accumulated a mailing list of interested people. And the other day, because there's a brand new book out on senior co-housing, looking at the model of Quimper Village, that people should get. If they're into senior co-housing, they should definitely check out the Quimper Village book. And the name of it, I should remember.
I have it sitting right on my coffee table a few feet away. That's a great book.
And just put it in front of the screen.
I will. I will do that before we hang up.
Something that when the book came out, I said to my co-housing neighbors who were involved in it, we have a little development team. I said, we don't really have anything new to say about the project. I mean, we've been trying to buy this thing for years. But in the meantime, just to keep people interested, we sent out an email and said, hey, here's a great book to check out. And by the way, are you a member of Coho US? While you're waiting for our project to maybe get off the ground, here's some resources. So we came up with news so that people knew that we were still here, we're still trying. And I think you said that you're always building relationships from the first day on, getting that mailing list, organizing it, staying in touch. So
Yeah, it's really important. If you can give, I always tell my groups, get phone numbers if you can, because having phone numbers is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Would you like me to go grab that book real quick?
Yes, would you?
Yep, it's right here. Hold on.
Great. Thank you. It's a terrific book, and just was published, I'm going to say like 6 weeks ago. And it's co-written by Alexandria Levitt, who's on the SAGE board, the state-of-the-art co-housing lessons learned from Quimper Village. And I highly recommend it. You can buy it online, and it's co-authored by Alexandria and Chuck Durrett. And we actually have a board member who's at Quimper Village, Carolyn Salmon. So it's a small world after all, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, Shelly, thank you so much for taking the time to share some of your insights. And I highly recommend that people should check you out. And if you do workshops, take your workshops. Shelly Parks in Washington State. Skagit Cohousing is where?
It's in Anacortes, Washington, so north of Seattle, an hour and a half north. Yeah.
Gorgeous, gorgeous area. My sister lives in Gig Harbor, so I've been out there, and
yeah,
it's beautiful. Well, thanks so much, and let's meet again and talk about some other aspects of marketing and making senior co-housing a reality.
I would enjoy that. Thanks so much for asking me to join you.
You're welcome. Take care.